Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to walk through a very important example, which I'll call area codes. And the reason I'm recording this separate video is so that we can really take our time in this example. And that's important because you're going to work on many similar problems in homework 4 that's coming out this week. So I thought it was important to give this example the time that it needs and not rush through it. Okay, so let's describe the problem. Let's assume that we have this dictionary, which we'll call codes dict, where all of the keys are area codes and all of the values are the states where that area code corresponds to. So for example, what this first key value pair 208 is telling us is that 208 is an Idaho area code. And it's also telling us that 209 is a California area code, 210 is a Texas area code, and so on and so forth. And so we know there are multiple California area codes, there are multiple Texas area codes, most states have multiple area codes. And so what our goal is to create this new dictionary called states dict, where now the keys instead of area codes are the names of states and the values are a list of all of the area codes corresponding to that state. So for example, the value for the key California is this list 209, 213, so on and so forth. And there are many more elements in this list, like 510, which is the Berkeley area code, or 408, or whatever else. So our goal and our job in this video is to go from codes dict to states dict. We need to create this dictionary. And so what I want you to do is pause the video and maybe brainstorm for a minute how we might go about approaching this problem. Now, I will say it is 100% okay if you have no idea, because we haven't really done a problem like this before. And to be honest, this is probably slightly more involved than the problems that we will have you do in homework 4. But it's a really important one, and I think it's a really cool example. So I want you to pause the video and just try and think about how we might proceed. And after you do that, we will proceed. Okay, if you didn't actually pause the video, that silence might have been awkward, but that's okay. So before we write any code, I always like to, start with some start with a high level approach and write my ideas down. And so just for reference, here is codes dict once again, which is what we are starting with. I just wrote it in a slightly more compressed form. So here's my idea. What I want to do is for every area code in codes dict, so for 208, then 209, then 210, then 212, and so on and so forth, what I want to do is first determine the corresponding state. So for 208, I know the state is Idaho. For 213, I know the state is California. And so on and so forth. If we've already seen the state before, in states dict, I want to add that area code to the list corresponding to that state. If we haven't seen that state before, what we want to do is make a list for that state and add the area code to it. Now, I know this is kind of abstract, right? We don't know what states dict looks like right now, and so this might just be a little bit of gibberish. But what I want to do is switch over to the iPad and walk through a concrete example of this 3-step process without writing any code. And so then we'll jump over to a Jupyter notebook and then translate these 3 steps into code, and then hopefully things will be a little more clear. So let's switch to the iPad. So here I have on the left this example codes dict. Now it's slightly different than the one that you saw on the slides. Both of them are really just a subset of the true codes dict, which has, hundreds of area codes. What I'm going to do is walk through this 3-step process of generating the elements in states dict. And so what I know I'm going to do is look at every key value pair individually. So maybe I'll start with this first one, 215. And so here in codes dict, the key is 215 and the value is Pennsylvania. So what does my 3-step process say? Well, it says, if I've seen the state already, add this area code 215 to the list corresponding to that state. Well, right now, states dict is an empty dictionary. I've kind of written it so that we have space to fill it in, but we have an open curly bracket and a closed curly bracket, and there's nothing in between. States dict is empty, there are no keys, And so Pennsylvania is certainly not one of the keys in the list. So what I'm going to do now is say, also, these really should have quotes because they're strings. What I know is Pennsylvania is not currently one of the keys in my dictionary. So what I'm going to do is say Pennsylvania is a key in my new dictionary, and its value is going to be the list of right now just 215, because that's the only Pennsylvania area code I've seen so far. When we see more, we'll just add them to this list, and so the list will be 215, and then whatever other Pennsylvania area codes we see are. But so far, we've processed the very first key value pair in CodesDict. And so just to make clear, in CodesDict, the keys were area codes and the values were states. In StatesDict, which is what we're creating now, the keys are state names and the values are lists of area codes. Okay, awesome. So we've done the first key value pair. Now let's move to the second one. 216 in Ohio. So here, the key is 216 and the value is Ohio. So what my three-step process says is first, determine what the state is. Here it's Ohio. Then check to see if Ohio is one of the keys in my new dictionary. Is it right now? No, the only key in my new dictionary is Pennsylvania. So what I need to do is make a new key value pair where the key is Ohio and the value is this list 216. Okay, let's move on. My next key value pair in CodesDict is key 234, value Ohio. So I ask, is Ohio one of the keys in my new dictionary? It is, right? It's right here. We've already seen an Ohio area code before. So instead of making a new list with just 234 in it, what we're going to do is just add 234 to the existing Ohio list. We can append it. And so now, for the key Ohio in my new dictionary, the value is this list of 216 and 234, because those are the Ohio area codes I've seen so far. And if I see any more Ohio area codes, they'll just be added to this list. All right. Hopefully you get the idea, but just for concreteness, we'll go through these last two examples. Our next key value pair is a key of 262 and a value of Wisconsin. We ask, is Wisconsin one of the keys in my new dictionary? It's not, so I need to make a new entry. So Wisconsin will be the key. The value will be this list of 262. All right. And lastly, we look at 267 and Pennsylvania. We ask, is Pennsylvania one of the keys in our new dictionary? And it is, right? It's right here. And so instead of making a new list, we just take 267, and add it here. Let's add a little more space here. So we have 215 and 267. Great. And so if we do this for all of the key value pairs in CodesDict, StatesDict will eventually have, the result we want it to, which is a list of area codes for each state. And so now the purpose of this was to make sure we understand the three-step idea that you see on the slides. What we're now going to do is translate this into code and make sure the result that we got looks correct. And so let's do that. Let's hop over to the old Jupyter notebook. Okay, so try and do this in a way that we can see the steps on the side. So here we have the true CodesDict dictionary, and you can see it's pretty long, and it has all of the entries you'd think it has. Like, for example, 510, the Berkeley area code, is right there. Okay, so what's our process? Well, as we looked at in lecture, we know we're going to have to iterate over all of the keys in the dictionary. So we can start by doing that. So I can say for code in CodesDict.keys. Remember, CodesDict.keys, I can't type today, will give us this dict keys value, and really it's just a undercover list. If I can cast it to a list, you'll see that it gives me a list of all of the keys of this dictionary. And so it'll allow me to easily do something for each of the area codes that we have. So I'm going to say for code in codesdict.keys, then my first step is to get the corresponding state. And so I can say state is equal to, well, it's just the value for that key. So if the key is 510, the state will be California. If the key or code is, 518, the state will be New York, and so on and so forth. Now we need to implement steps 2 and 3, which involves checking to see if we've seen this code already. If we've seen this state already. And so remember, stateSdict is where we are going to save our result. And so what I need to ask is, if state in stateSdict. And so what this is asking is, have we already seen this state before? Is this state one of the keys in stateSdict already? If it is, append code to the list. And if it's not, we need to make a list with code in it, which is exactly the process we looked at in the iPad. So if we have seen this state before, that means we need to add code to the list for that state. If we haven't already seen this state before, well, we need to make a new list for it. So I'm going to say, well, I need to make a new entry where the key is the name of the state and the value is this list with just that area code in it. So, for example, if we scroll to the very top, the very first time I see, the very first time I see any state, but let's just say California, for example, there's not already going to be a list for California in stateSdict. So I need to make a new entry where California is the key, and there's a list of 209. Then once I see California again, I say, well, okay, I've already seen California before, so add 213 to the list that already has 209 in it. Same idea as we looked at in the iPad. And so that's really it. That walks through all of the logic that we described. And so when I ask for stateSdict, it has our result for every state. And so you can see, it's pretty long, but if I ask for stateSdict of California, it'll give me a list of all of the area codes in California. And you'll see, if you're from California, you'll probably see your area code here. Okay, so that's the area codes example. Hopefully this was clear, and if it wasn't, please ask any questions on Ed. But this is a really important example, and so I'm glad we got to walk through it here. Thanks for watching.